Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting collection of interviews today, looking at straight-A students from some top-tier, really demanding universities. We're talking Harvard, Princeton, Yale, places like that.
Yeah, and what's great is this isn't just theory from professors. This is straight from the students themselves, how they actually manage to succeed consistently.
Exactly. And, if you're listening, you're probably looking for ways to actually absorb information, gain knowledge, without just feeling buried under work or spending every waking hour in the library.
Feeling overwhelmed is so common.
Right. So our mission here is really to unpack their habits, figure out the shortcuts, the efficient ways they study, so you can maybe apply some of that too.
And a key concept that popped up right away in these interviews was this idea of pseudo work.
Pseudo work. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It's that state of, looking really busy, putting in the hours, but not actually working effectively. Think long nights in the library fueled by caffeine, where maybe only the first hour was productive.
Or maybe study groups that turn more into coffee breaks and complaining sessions.
Exactly that. Or like the roommate who has the TV on while flipping through notes, or someone highlighting almost everything in a textbook. It looks like effort.
But it's not translating into real learning. It's inefficient.
Precisely. These straight-A students, they seem to consciously avoid that trap. They're focused on working smarter, getting more done with less wasted effort.
Okay, so that's our goal then, to pull out those core, actionable strategies they use, how they manage time, take notes, tackle assignments, prep for exams, all the good stuff.
Yeah, let's dig in.
All right, where do we start? Time management seems foundational.
Absolutely. It really underpins everything else. And the big takeaway here is moving away from those long, low-intensity study marathons.
Right, those 8-hour library sessions that sound impressive but maybe aren't.
Yeah, exactly. Instead, the students talked a lot about short, really high-intensity bursts of focus. Your brain just isn't wired for hours and hours of peak concentration.
Okay, so break that down.
Yeah.
Instead of, say, blocking 4 hours for history, maybe do shorter bursts.
One student put it really well. 3 one-hour bursts at intensity 10. It sounds much more manageable.
And probably more effective, right?
Yeah.
You can actually maintain that intensity for an hour, maybe not for 4 straight hours.
Exactly. It ties into concepts like distributed practice learning, spread out, works better for memory, and reduces that mental burnout.
Okay, but how do you actually make that happen? It can't just be willpower.
No. And that's where their planning comes in. It goes beyond just a simple to-do list. They actively schedule these bursts, these tasks, into their calendars.
So not just study bio notes, but blocking out Tuesday 2-3 p.m., review bio chapter 5.
Precisely. That simple act of time labeling, putting it in a specific slot, makes a huge difference.
Why? What does that do psychologically?
Well, first, it gives you a much more realistic picture of your actual free time. We tend to overestimate how much time we have and underestimate how long things take. That's the planning fallacy.
Okay. So seeing it blocked out makes it real, harder to ignore or push off.
Right. It makes your commitments more tangible. It reduces that, oh, I'll get to it later, because you see later is already filling up.
But college schedules can be chaotic. What about flexibility? Things pop up.
Yeah, a totally rigid schedule is bound to fail. So many used a daily list alongside the calendar. Often with a today's schedule section, they could tweak as the day unfolded.
Okay, so the calendar's a framework, but the daily list allows for adjustments.
Exactly. The goal isn't rigid perfection 7 days a week. It's about hitting most of your planned tasks, say 5 out of 7 days. That's realistic and still incredibly effective.
And just the act of getting everything down, deadlines, tasks, appointments in one place, like the calendar, must reduce mental stress.
Oh, absolutely. That mental clutter of trying to remember everything, it drains your cognitive energy. Externalizing it onto a calendar frees up so much mental bandwidth for actual thinking and learning.
We saw that example from Stephen, wasn't it? His daily list system.
Yeah, really simple but effective. He had today's schedule and things to remember. He'd look at his calendar, pull things onto the daily list, add any new tasks.
And it only took him, what, like 3-5 minutes each morning?
Low friction. That's key.
Yeah.
It wasn't some complex system that becomes a chore in itself. And it was flexible. Tasks could roll over. Long-term projects were noted so they didn't fall off the radar.
Okay, so foundation laid. Focused bursts, scheduled into a flexible calendar system. Now, what about when you actually sit down to do the work? Optimizing focus and energy.
Right. This is about managing your physical state, too. Caffeine came up a lot, but strategically.
Not just chugging coffee all day.
No, definitely not. The advice was more like maybe one caffeinated drink to start, get that initial boost, but then switching to decaf or water.
All right.
No more than one large one per hour, generally. Avoid the jitters, avoid the crash.
That makes sense. I've definitely felt that afternoon caffeine crash.
What about food? Snacks? The dreaded study munchies? Yeah, and the temptation is often sugary stuff, right? But these students actively avoided that. They focused on healthy snacks, fruits, vegetables, nuts, whole grains, lean protein.
Things that give sustained energy, not that quick sugar rush and then slump.
Exactly. Refined carbs lead to those energy spikes and crashes, which kill focus. Staying hydrated helps too, kind of linked to the caffeine point.
And skipping meals seems like a definite no-no.
Huge red flag. Snacks are okay bridges, but you need actual meals. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Skipping them tanks your blood sugar, makes concentration way harder, and actually makes you more likely to procrastinate because you just don't have the fuel.
Okay, fuel handled. Now this next one was interesting. Making an event out of tasks you don't enjoy.
Yeah, this is about leveraging environment. If you have a task you're really dreading, try doing it somewhere completely new and maybe slightly inconvenient to get to.
Like a coffee shop across town or a different library.
Or even a quiet restaurant during off hours. The change of scenery itself, plus the little bit of extra effort to get there, can kind of trick your brain into taking it more seriously. It breaks the routine and minimizes your usual distraction.
Creates a little mental separation. I like that. Like a mini study retreat.
Exactly. And for building consistency, many used protected hours. Blocking out the same time slot each week specifically for a certain subject. Like maybe every Tuesday from 4-5 p.m. is chemistry problem set time.
So it becomes a habit, like a recurring appointment. Takes the decision-making out of it.
Right. Reduces that mental friction of when should I start this? And then there's choosing your hard days.
Okay.
College inevitably has really intense periods. Instead of just letting them hit you, these students would proactively look at their week or month and schedule the really demanding study days.
So they'd plan for the crunch times.
Yeah, spread them out if possible, mentally prepare for them, and maybe even schedule something relaxing before or after. It gives you a sense of control rather than feeling constantly reactive and overwhelmed.
Taking charge of the intensity. Okay, so we've got time, energy, mindset. What about the actual when and where? Best time and place to study.
The strong consensus was study earlier in the day, generally between waking up and dinner time.
Which kind of goes against that classic image of the student pulling an all-nighter.
It really does. Nighttime feels like you have this big block of free time, but often it's not as productive.
Why is that?
Well, thinking back to energy levels, you're usually sharper earlier. Your cognitive resources are higher after rest. By evening, your body's naturally winding down. Plus, nighttime often brings more social distractions, whether it's roommates, messages, things going on. And realistically, those late sessions often get cut short or aren't as focused as you plan.
So capitalize on daytime energy.
Yeah.
What about all those little pockets of time during the day? Between classes, maybe.
Super valuable. These students were masters at using that fragmented time. 30 minutes here, 45 minutes there. Carry your materials. Be ready to knock out a few pages of reading or review some notes. It really adds up.
Okay. And the physical place, we heard. Study bunker.
Yeah. The key is a dedicated space, free from distractions. Your brain needs that signal. This is where I focus. So probably not your bed.
Definitely not my bed. Too tempting to nap.
Right. And probably not the noisy dorm lounge either. Find your spot, your sanctuary, where work is the default activity.
Okay, got it. So we've set the stage. Now let's get into the actual studying itself. We talked about pseudo work earlier. How does that apply specifically to exam prep?
It's the same trap, really. Long, low-intensity review sessions, and the biggest culprit is often just rote review, passively reading and rereading notes of the textbook over and over.
But it feels like studying. You're putting in the hours, looking at the material.
It feels like it, yeah. But it's incredibly inefficient for actually learning and remembering. It's mostly passive recognition, not active recall. Cognitive science calls it shallow processing.
Shallow processing, meaning it doesn't stick.
Pretty much. You might recognize it when you see it again, but you can't easily recall it or apply it, which is what you need on an exam. Plus, honestly, it's boring. It leads to fatigue, your mind wanders.
There was an analogy used, wasn't there? Like basketball shots.
Yeah. Comparing rote review to trying to make baskets using underhand granny shots, you could practice for hours and hours, but you won't get much better. Switching to a proper jump shot, a better technique, is far more effective, even with less practice time.
So better study techniques trump sheer hours of ineffective review. Makes perfect sense. Let's talk techniques then, starting with note-taking during lectures.
Right, crucial first step. The general advice for non-technical courses, humanities, social sciences, lean towards using a laptop.
Faster typing. Capture more points.
Yeah, generally you can get more down. The obvious exception is math or science, heavy on equations, diagrams, handwriting might be better there.
Okay.
And organization.
One notebook per class seems standard. Some even typed up summaries of handwritten notes later, which helps with review and organization. And always date everything and file handouts immediately. Don't let stuff pile up.
What about making the notes themselves useful? Any formatting tips?
Be aggressive with formatting. Bold, boxes, bullet points, using shorthand, leaving plenty of white space. The goal isn't neatness for others. It's visual clarity for you. Make key concepts jump out. Create a visual map.
And there was that specific structure mentioned for non-technical classes, QEC.
Yeah.
Question, evidence, conclusion?
Yeah, this is a really powerful one. The idea is that many professors, especially in those fields, structure their lectures around answering questions. So they pose a question, maybe implicitly.
Okay.
Then they present evidence, arguments, data.
And then they draw a conclusion. So structuring your notes that way, trying to identify and write down the main question, bulleting the evidence, and clearly labeling the conclusion helps you follow the logic.
You're mirroring the professor's thought process.
Exactly. It forces you to engage more actively than just transcribing.
What if the lecture is really fast or doesn't fit that structure perfectly?
Use the slower moments, maybe when the prof tells an anecdote or takes questions, to go back and quickly refine. Try to identify the QEC elements after the fact, and definitely spend a few minutes right after class polishing the notes while it's fresh. QEC is a framework, not a rigid rule.
Gotcha. What about discussion seminars? Much less structured.
Yeah, the strategy is simpler. Focus on capturing the key insights and interesting observations as they come up, whether from the professor or other students. It's more about capturing nuggets than a single narrative thread.
Makes sense. And for the technical courses, math, physics, engineering?
The absolute priority there, record as many sample problems, worked examples, as humanly possible.
Those examples are gold.
They are the most valuable study resource. Follow along with the textbook open if it helps. When the professor works through a problem, capture every step. That's your toolkit for the homework and exams.
Okay, so notes become less about concepts, more about practical problem-solving steps. Moving on to assignments then, the dreaded papers and problem sets. The key seems to be avoiding the last-minute panic.
Absolutely. That day before scramble is stressful and rarely produces your best work. If you have multiple deadlines collide, it's just chaos.
So the alternative is working constantly. That sounds tiring.
It sounds like it, but it means working in small, manageable chunks daily if possible. Instead of saving that whole problem set for Thursday night, do 1 or 2 problems Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Break it down.
Yes. Or read one section of the assigned chapter each day instead of cramming it all at once. That student Simon, he planned his whole week on Sunday nights, slotting in specific times for specific assignments. Much less daunting.
And getting ahead when you can creates a buffer, right?
Huge benefit. Life happens, bigger projects come up. If you've chipped away at regular assignments early, you have breathing room when things get hectic.
Reading assignments can feel like a black hole for time. How did these students handle that efficiently?
Triage. That was the key word. You have to consciously decide. What needs a deep, careful read? What can I skim for the main ideas? And honestly, what might be less critical right now?
Okay, triage.
Yeah.
Is there a hierarchy?
Generally, yes. Arguments, the author's main points or thesis, are top priority. Then descriptions, details, examples, supporting evidence. And lastly, context, background info, supplementary stuff.
Can you give an example, like for that Vietnam War course?
Sure. So an article by a historian arguing a specific cause of the war, that's an argument. Read it closely. A soldier's memoir describing battles, that's largely description, focus on key events, perspectives. A politician's speech from the era, maybe context, skim for the main themes.
What about fiction? Sometimes that's assigned.
Good point. Sometimes fiction is used because it makes a powerful argument or illustrates a cultural point really well. In that case, it might become a favored source, deserving closer attention.
And if there's no main textbook, just lots of articles, how do you pick the favorite sources?
Look for the readings that directly tackle the topic of that week's lecture. Treat others as supplementary. And pay close attention in lecture. What does the professor emphasize or refer back to?
Let the lecture guide your reading priorities.
Exactly. And make a note if you skipped or skimmed something, just in case the lecture shows it was more important than you thought. You can circle back.
And note-taking on readings, similar to lectures.
Yep, pretty much. That QEC structure can work really well for pulling out arguments from academic articles, too.
Okay. One last assignment tip for technical courses and problem sets, beyond just starting early.
There's that solve problems on the go idea.
Which means
If you get stuck on a tricky problem, don't just stare at it for an hour. Get familiar with it, try an initial approach, and then let it simmer in the back of your mind while you do other things, walk to class, eat lunch.
let your subconscious chew on it.
Kind of. Sometimes the solution pops into your head when you're not actively forcing it. And collaboration is good, but usually after you've wrestled with the problems yourself first.
Right, don't just copy answers. Okay, great stuff on assignments. Now the final boss, exams. All this prep work should make studying less scary, hopefully.
That's the idea. If your notes are good and you've kept up with assignments, exam prep isn't starting from zero. It's really about two main phases. Organizing your materials smartly and then reviewing them effectively.
Let's take organization first. How do you structure all that material?
For non-technical courses, it's mostly about clustering your notes. Group them by lecture topic or by the main themes of the course. See the connections.
Create a coherent picture.
Exactly. For technical courses, the powerhouse move is building mega problem sets.
Mega problem sets.
Yeah. Take your graded homework sets, plus the sample problems from your lecture notes, and compile them onto fresh sheets of paper. Label each sheet with the relevant lecture date.
Okay.
And here's the crucial bit. Add technical explanation questions. Ask yourself why a certain method works or what concept is being applied. Don't just solve for X, explain the how and why, and naturally include any practice exams provided.
What about pure memorization? Formulas, dates, vocab.
Start making flashcards or other aids early, like a week before you plan to really hit the books for review. Do it incrementally, maybe during downtime. Don't try to cram all the memorization at the end.
And you mentioned separating the organizing from the reviewing. Why?
Just to avoid brain fatigue. Organizing takes effort. Reviewing takes focused mental energy. Doing both back-to-back can make the review part less effective. Schedule them separately if you care. Give your brain a break in between.
Okay, materials organized. Now the review itself, the quiz and recall method came up. How does that work?
This is all about active recall, not passive rereading. For non-technical stuff, take a section of your notes or study guide, cover it up, and try to explain the key points out loud or by writing them down.
Force yourselves to retrieve the information.
Exactly. Then check your notes, see what you missed or got wrong. Focus on those weak spots and repeat until it's solid.
And for the technical mega problem sets.
Start with those explanation questions you added. Make sure you understand the concepts first. Then tackle the sample problems. Actually write out the steps. Don't just do it in your head. Check your work meticulously. Redo anything you got wrong until you nail it. And finally, if you have practice exams, do them under timed conditions. Simulate the real thing as closely as possible.
Okay, active recall, practice problems, time practice. Got it. What about those nagging questions, the confusing bits in your notes you never quite figured out during the semester?
Yes. Academic disaster insurance. You have to clear those up before you start your main exam review. Studying for an exam is not the time to be learning totally new, confusing material.
So how do you get those answers?
4 main tactics. 1, ask questions in class right when the confusion happens. Don't wait.
Okay.
2, go to office hours or email the professor. Get clarification directly. 3, talk to classmates. Sometimes a peer explaining it differently makes it click. And 4, the last resort, if time is tight, quickly review the unclear topic anyway. Even if you don't fully grasp it, some familiarity is better than none. But ideally, you use tactics 1, 2, and 3 first.
Eliminate the question marks proactively. Okay. Last step. It's actually exam day. Any final strategies for taking the test?
Definitely. First, when you get the exam, don't just dive into question 1. Take a minute, flip through the whole thing.
Like the lay of the land.
Yeah, see the types of questions, the point values. It reduces anxiety and helps you plan. Then make a quick time budget. Allocate rough minutes per question. Leave a cushion at the end.
Right.
Then consider answering questions out of order. Maybe tackle the ones you feel most confident about first. Build momentum, bank easy points.
Good strategy. What about essays?
Always jot down a quick outline before you start writing. Just main points. It keeps you organized and ensures you hit everything you need to. Avoid rambling.
And if you finish early,
Use every minute. Go back. Check your answers. Reread the questions. Look for silly mistakes. Don't just bolt out the door.
solid advice. Be strategic right to the very end.
Exactly. Maximize your chances of showing what you know.
So wrapping this all up, it really seems like getting those top grades isn't about some secret genius gene or just brute force hours.
No, it's much more about working smarter. It's consistent effort applied strategically, managing time efficiently, using study methods that actually work for learning, handling assignments proactively, and preparing for exams methodically.
And these are techniques grounded in what successful students actually do in these really tough academic settings.
Right. And the goal isn't just better grades, it's about gaining knowledge effectively, feeling less overwhelmed, and having a more balanced, sustainable college experience. It's about learning how to learn well.
Absolutely. So as we finish this deep dive, maybe take a second to think about your own habits. Is there one thing, maybe two, from our discussion today that really resonated? Something you can try implementing, even in a small way.
Because those small shifts, choosing focused bursts over marathons, trying quiz and recall instead of just rereading, scheduling your tasks, they can really add up.
Yeah. And maybe ask yourself, which pseudo-work habits, those things that feel busy but aren't really productive, might you be ready to ditch? Starting there could make a big difference.